Hey guys, welcome back to Storytime Slayer podcast. I am your host, Hailey Lyra, and fair warning, today's case is like fairly heinous. It also involves the death of a child at the hands of a total stranger in a very heinous manner. So with that being said, I am just going to jump right into it. So we are going to Blairmore, which is in Canada, in a specific town called Crow's Nest Pass, which is actually a makeup of like 5 small mining towns. It's near the Alberta. It's in the country Alberta in Canada. I'm not quite sure how Canada geographics work, to be honest. Anyway, that is where we're going. So it is September 14th, 2015, when Bill Blanchard, I forgot my moisturizer, when Bill Blanchard could not get a hold of his son, Terry. So Terry was 27. He had a 2-year-old daughter, Hailey, which he split custody of with her mother, Cheyenne. Cheyenne and Terry tried to make it work, but they just weren't really compatible. However, when it came to Hailey, they were very amicable and they split their time with her in 2-week increments, meaning she went to Terry's for 2 weeks and then she went to Cheyenne's for 2 weeks. However, during this time, Cheyenne was in the middle of a big move. So Terry had kept Hailey for a little bit longer than normal. Like I want to say 3, 4, 5 weeks. Anyway. So Bill goes to Terry's because, like I said, Terry's not answering phone calls. He's not answering text messages. And Bill starts beating on the door, knocking on the window, shouting from outside, calling Terry. Terry will not answer. Bill enters the house and he finds a horrifying sight. He immediately sees blood and he follows this blood into his son's bathroom where he finds his son, Terry, has been brutally murdered. His throat is cut and he is in a puddle of blood. However, it's obvious to even the naked eye, Bill, not an investigator, just a normal guy, it is obvious that Terry was not killed in the bathroom. So he follows these stains of blood, which look like body dragged marks. He follows these and he sees that his son Terry was actually murdered in his bed and then drugged to the bathroom. In a panic, Bill starts looking for his granddaughter, Hailey. He had just seen Hailey the night before, and they had stayed the night. She'd stayed the night with her grandparents so that Terry could get some work done. However, she's nowhere to be found, so Bill immediately calls police. And police get there and they immediately start canvassing the area because, you know, when a child is missing, time is of the essence. The longer that passes, the chances of finding that child alive significantly decrease. So they canvassed the area, and actually Terry's neighbor had seen something. He said he woke up and heard sounds of someone outside. Like it sounded like someone was walking around their townhouse apartments. And then he heard the voice of a child. So he actually goes outside and looks, and he sees a white creeper van, you know, like one of those big white commercial vans, and he sees it speed off at 3:30 a.m. So police take this information, they put out a bolo for the van, and then at 2 p.m. September 14th, they actually send out an Amber Alert. In the Amber Alert, they have a description of Hailey, a picture of her. She's a beautiful little girl, 2 years old, big beaming eyes, brown hair, just lovely. And then on the white commercial van was the words Prestige Cleaners. So in the meantime, Larry Starkinski, I probably butchered that name. Just give me some grace, guys. He sees this Amber Alert and he recognizes that van. And that van actually belongs to his business, Prestige Cleaners. It's a dry cleaning business in the area of Crow's Nest. So he calls police and he says, hey, I actually recognize that van. And when I looked to see if any of my dry cleaning vans were used the night prior, one in fact was used by my son, Derek Starkinski. Derek was 23 or 24 at the time of this. And he said, when I went to look at the van that my son had taken without my permission, I found blood in it. please come, and I've encouraged my son to talk to authorities. So the police immediately hightail it over to Prestige Cleaners. So here's the deal. Derek Starkinski actually has a room at his mom's house, but sometimes he stays in this apartment upstairs from his dad's dry cleaning business. It's kind of a joint. So that is where police find him and take a look at the van, which Larry, Derek's dad, is not trying to hide anything. In fact, he's definitely aided this criminal investigation as much as he possibly could. So kudos to him. I think that's amazing. Police go to Derek and they say, Derek, listen, I'm just going to tell you point blank, you are a suspect in the disappearance of this little girl and the murder of Terry Blanchette. We need to know, do you know where little Hailey is? And he is beats around the bush about this subject. Like, he tells him, she's probably in heaven. I see her spirit floating around, but he won't say really neither here nor there. So police just decide, you know what, screw it. We're going to arrest this guy. So they arrest Derek and they take him to the police station, and he's very, very, very evasive for questioning. So they end up hiring a expert interrogator, and they bring in this expert interrogator, and he's very nice and he's very subtle and soft-spoken. And he slowly coaxes Derek into confessing. Derek at first is adamant, like, I have no idea. This wasn't me. I'm always getting blamed for stuff. Victim card, right? He's like, it's not me. Everybody always points the finger at me. And finally, this guy is like, look, dude, we didn't just pick you out on a whim. We didn't just say, hey, let's blame Derek for this. We have evidence that you did this. And Derek's like, okay, I did it. He confesses, and he agrees to show police where he took little Hailey. He took her to a family-owned campsite. I don't know who in the family owned it. I think it was probably like some extended family. But regardless, at the end of a very long gravel road, his family had a campgrounds, and it had on it a travel trailer, a single-wide trailer, a fire pit, which, by the way, was still smoldering when investigators arrived, and some picnic tables. What police and Derek didn't know is while Derek was being escorted to the gravesite of Hailey, or the murder scene rather, not the gravesite, but while he was being taken there, Derek's cousin had already gone to this campgrounds and found suspicious things and alerted the police. So they're met by more police. And once there, they find the fire pit still smoldering, like I said, and they actually find a metal pot. It's round. It looks like one you could cook with over a campfire. It's even got like the metal wire over the top of it. So it has blood on it. And police are like, okay, Derek, what happened? And Derek gives a full confession, which, by the way, he's completely emotionless during. It's like he's telling you what he watched on TV. This man is terrible. He's terrible. And he says, hold on, let me finish my eyeliner. I don't want to be disrespectful. So he says that he'd known Cheyenne and Terry and little Hailey for a while. When Terry and Shy broke up, he claims that he briefly dated Cheyenne for about 5 months. Cheyenne, though, is adamant they did not date. They were just friends, and they'd hang out a couple times a week, and it went on for about 5 months. And it started when Hailey was about 2 months old. Whatever. So he said that him and Cheyenne dated, and he kind of gathered that maybe Terry had a history of being abusive, and Terry gave him a dirty look. So that is what encouraged him to do this crime. He said that he went to Terry's home and he snuck in with a tire iron, and he bashed Terry in the head while he was asleep. He then tied a rope around Terry's neck and then cut his throat before dragging him to the bathroom. He wanted to drain Terry's blood while he was in the bathroom, but he didn't quite have the right container to do that. And the reason he wanted to drain Terry's blood is because he wanted to drink it. However, when that plan didn't go out as he wanted it to, he goes and he looks for baby Hailey, who's upstairs asleep in her crib, and he kidnaps her. And he drives her out to the campsite. Then he lights a fire using old books in the fire pit, and he strangles Hailey and then dismembers her body and drains her blood. Before disposing of her in the fire pit, he did in fact cook and eat parts of her, partaking in cannibalism. The investigators asked him why he did this, if this was some sort of like satanic, service, or what the premise is of his actions. And he said he just felt like it would give him strength. After he ate parts of her, he put all of the rest of her remains into the fire pit along with his clothes, drank her blood, went home to his apartment above his dad's dry cleaning business, showered, smoked weed, and went to bed. When investigators went to his apartment, for one, dude, his apartment is disgusting, okay? It's got like no personal touches, no signs of normalcy. There's like no organization in the kitchen. It's lacking normal things like a silverware tray and stuff. There's tons of knives everywhere. I'm talking butcher knives, throwing knives, pocket knives, specialty knives. And he's a bare mattress on the floor kind of guy. No sheets, just no mattress cover, no bed frame. In the middle of his living room is his sofa, and it's literally in the middle of the room crooked. That's what kind of guy he is. It's very strange. But regardless of all that, police do find very incriminating evidence. They find his pair of boots in the living room, which have blood on them, that is in fact matched to little Hailey. And then they also find a really cryptic note that he wrote for himself. And it says, quote, "Medicine fresh." And below that, it has Shy, Terry, Hannah, the hideous baby, all with lines marked through them. And they're like, Hannah? Who the heck is Hannah? Well, 5 days before he brutally murdered Terry and Hailey, 69-year-old Hannah Meketech had been brutally murdered in her trailer. The police had no idea who did it or why, because the crime seemed to really have no motive. Like nothing was missing. No one seemed to gain anything from the crime. So once police saw her name on this list, they're like, oh my gosh, it makes sense that he did this. And Derek did have a connection to the elderly woman. In fact, she lived next door to Derek's grandparents, and he mowed her lawn for her. So police are like, what? So at least they solved another case. So they charge him with the murders of Terry, Hailey, Hannah, and they also charge him with count of indignity to a body. For 6 months while in jail, Derek maintained, I didn't kill Hannah, I didn't kill Hannah, and then finally he confessed. And he literally says, I just did it just because. I did it just because, probably just because he wanted to try it out. He obviously had something mentally wrong with him, in my opinion. Like, he just doesn't, none of this makes sense to me. Like, none of this makes sense to me. If he liked Cheyenne, why would he murder her child? Like, it's crazy. Why would he murder this very nice elderly woman, Hannah? Oh, let's talk about Hannah. So, by the way, yeah, the thing that happened with Hannah was September 9th, she didn't go into work. And it was very unlike her not to call or text if she wasn't coming in. So a concerned friend and neighbor actually called police to ask for a welfare check. And on September 9th, they go into her home, and that's where they find that she has been brutally bludgeoned and stabbed to death. It was a very heinous crime. Very heinous crime, okay? So, anyway, he's charged with all 3 of those murders, indecency to a human corpse. He goes to trial 2 years later. For those 2 years, nobody knew exactly what happened. It was not until he went to trial that everybody found out exactly what he did to Terry and Hailey specifically. And I think that is horrifying. I think that is heartbreaking to have to wait 2 years to find out what happened to your loved ones when they are obviously been brutalized in such a horrific manner. 2 years after sitting in jail, his trial starts in June of 2017. It's held like a little over an hour and a half away from where the crime took place at. And the prosecution put on a full trial. It lasted 3 weeks. They brought in multiple witnesses. However, the defense didn't really put on a trial at all. And that was because they didn't have a leg to stand on. He confessed to all the murders and crimes. He told exactly how he did it. They had substantial evidence against him. And when he underwent 2 psychological evaluations, they deemed him fit to stand trial and not criminally insane or sane enough to use any of that as a defense. Woof, right? By the way, while on the stand, when Cheyenne, Terry's parents, Derek's parents were all testifying, Derek was smirking half the time. The jury only deliberated for 3 hours before ultimately finding him guilty of all charges, and he was sentenced to 3 life terms without the possibility of parole. Now in Canada, after a certain amount of time, you are eligible to apply for release. Derek will be 97 before he's eligible to apply for release. One thing that really stood out to me, though, about this crime and this tragedy is that Terry's family did not hold Derek's family responsible for the crime. And Derek's family was equally horrified at what their son had done. And I thought that was kind of a beautiful sentiment to me. Anyway, guys, this crime was horrific, and I'm sorry that I wrapped it up so fast, but it is summer. It is summer, and I have 4 kids, and it is so busy, guys. It's so busy. So you guys just, okay, send some good thoughts my way. I will talk to you next week. Bye.